Amen. All right. Well, today we're going to hear the word, then we're going to hear testimonies from our youth team as they went on their mission trip. They're going to share a little bit about their experience on the mission field, and then we're going to receive communion. So we have a little bit to do this morning, but I believe God will bless our worship today. I really do. 2 Corinthians, I'm going to begin from verse 1. I'm going to read from the Message, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, beginning with verse 1. And then it may match a little bit on the screen. You'll pick up a few words from here and there. But I really enjoyed Eugene Peterson's translation on this text. And I want to share it with you. Now, friends, I want to report on the surprising and generous ways in which God is working in the churches in Macedonia province. Fierce troubles came down on the people of those churches, pushing them to the very limit. The trial of their experience exposed their true colors. They were incredibly happy, though desperately poor. The pressure triggered something totally unexpected. An outpouring of pure and generous gifts. I was there and I saw it for myself. They gave offerings of whatever they could for more than they could afford, pleading for the privilege of helping out in the relief of poor Christians. This was totally spontaneous, entirely their own idea, and caught us completely off guard. What explains it was that they were first given themselves unreservedly to God and to us. The other giving simply flowed out of the purposes of God working in their lives. That's what prompted us to ask Titus to bring the relief offering to your attention, so that what was so well begun could be finished up. You do so well in so many things. You trust God. You're articulate in your faith. You're insightful. You're passionate. You love us. Now, do the best in this too. I'm not trying to order you around against your will, but by bringing in the Macedonians' enthusiasm as a stimulus for your love, I'm hoping to bring the best out of you. You are familiar with the generosity of our Master, Jesus Christ. Rich as He was, He gave it all away for us. In one stroke, He became poor, and we became rich. So here's what I think. The best thing that you can do right now is to finish what you started last year, and now let those good intentions grow, and do not let those good intentions grow stale. Your heart's been in the right place all along. You've got what it takes to finish it up. So go do it. Once the commitment is clear, you do what you can, not what you can't. The heart regulates the hands. I love that line. The heart regulates the hands. This isn't so others can take it easy while you sweat it out. No, you're shoulder to shoulder with them all the way. Your surplus matching their deficit. Their surplus matching your deficit. In the end, you come out even, as it is written. Nothing left over to the one with the most, nothing lacking to the one with the least. All right, now, a passage was written to a very wealthy church. Corinth was wealthy. They had the most. They didn't have to struggle. They had more money. It got them into trouble. When they got together for potlucks, it was lobster and steak. Anybody ever been to a potluck with lobster and steak? I went to one church, and I was hungry, and I ate everything in front of me. But I went to one church, and there was one bowl of potato salad and 10 containers of green beans. It wasn't very well organized. People in that church really like green beans. And we ate, and we had plenty, and nobody left hungry. But sometimes, you do the best you can. Now, in this church in Corinth, they didn't have to worry about eating a lot of green beans. It was very wealthy. The richest of foods, the best that money could buy. And Paul was saying to the church at Corinth, look, just up the street, there are brothers and sisters who've been persecuted. They've lost their jobs. They've been removed from the union, the guild system, because they refuse to eat meat sacrificed to idols. They refuse to bow their knee in worship to the emperor cult. They are standing strong, standing tall as witnesses to Jesus in a very difficult place. But when the offering was passed that they may send help to the church in Jerusalem, we didn't ask them to give a certain amount. We didn't try to manipulate them to give and put pictures of poor, starving children in front of them and manipulate them emotionally. What we did was we told them what we were doing, and it was the God that bubbled up in them, that moved them, that led them to participate. And they went beyond the call. They went beyond their capacity to give. Why? To impress someone? No. No. They were doing it as an act of worship. They were doing it as an expression of their response to the blessings, the lavished blessings. We learned that word this morning in Ephesians, the lavished blessings that were given to them in Macedonia, these new Christians. Because of what God has done for them, they reciprocated freely, willingly. No strings attached. It wasn't about buying favor with God. It was about responding from the heart. I love that line here. The heart guides the hand. Back in 2002, I was at annual conference. Some of you may remember being at annual conference in 2002. 9/11 was front and center in the minds of many of us, and the war was beginning, and there was a heaviness to our annual conference. And Dr. Eddie Fox was asked to come and preach one particular message one night in the series of worship services, and he told the story of being in Bulgaria. And he told a little bit about that story when he preached here not too long ago. He told the story of the Bulgarian church and how it was persecuted, and the pastors. There were 40 Methodist pastors that were arrested and executed, and their bodies still are missing by the communists there in Bulgaria behind the Iron Curtain. And the churches were left leaderless. The churches were confiscated. One particular church was made into a music hall. There were some Christians that knew that the property was about to be confiscated, and they took the bell down. They buried the bell in a secret place. And years after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain was pushed back, the wall came down, Christians from the West began to enter into Sofia and Varna and to reconnect with the underground churches in Bulgaria. And come to find out, the church grew, and it was ready to step out into the light and be a witness for Jesus. They had the freedom to do that. And they dug up the bell, and they recovered their property, and they rang the bell in Varna for the first time in decades. And there were people there that were old enough to remember when the bell was cut down and buried, and now they were able to hear the bell ringing again. A declaration to the risen Lord. Bulgaria had been weighed down by persecution. They had experienced arrest, confiscation, death. So Eddie had shared in that, and he had built relationships with pastors all over Bulgaria. When 9/11 happened, Eddie happened to be in Bulgaria, and he was preaching, and he was visiting very poor churches, very poor house churches, all over Bulgaria. Some were very poor gypsy churches. Very poor gypsy churches. These churches were abandoned homes, and they were heated with 55-gallon drums, and many of the pastors, quite frankly, were former Muslims. They converted to Christianity, and it was just an unbelievable story. Every story was unbelievable. When Eddie was there, and 9/11 had happened, and the world was reacting, he was preaching in a small church. There were 13 people in that church. And the youngest was 72. How many think 72s were young? I do. I hope to get there one day. It'll be even younger when I get there. 72 was the youngest. Eddie preached. They were gracious. He was shaking hands and greeting folk. And one of the leaders came up and handed him an envelope. And in it would be the equivalency of $7.40. And Eddie said, "What's this?" He said, I'm not taking any money from you. He said, No, we want you to take this to the church in America for your suffering, for what has happened to your country. We want to give to you because America and the church in America has given so much to us. We want to give to you. $7.40. Doesn't sound like a lot, though, does it? The average offering in that congregation was $1.50. They went beyond. Why? Eddie didn't ask for a dime. No compulsion. Because their heart guided their hands. Well, I heard that story and I said, No. That story can't end there. So I went back to my congregation at Liberty Hill United Methodist Church in Morristown. I told them the story, and they were moved. Now, these are factory workers. Brookline, Molly, different places, factory workers, blue-collar people, hard-working people, retired people. What are we going to do for this church? We want to bless this church. It became it became a part of the identity of that church, is that this little church in Bulgaria wanted to be such a blessing to this nation. We decided that we were going to reciprocate. We wanted to bless them now. It was their turn. And so I contacted Eddie, and we prayed about it, and we wrestled with it and kicked it around. And the budget of this little church was about $100,000. Total budget. Not even quite that much. And so we said, well, what do they need? So Eddie is going back and forth between their pastor and their superintendent and contacting me back and forth. And their pastor needed a van. Ivan needed a van because he not only had planted that church, he was planting 2 more churches, and he wanted to plant 2 more churches. He wanted the gospel was opening up. And the nation was opening up to the gospel. So I went back to the church and I said, they need a van. Well, how much is that? I don't know. Well, so we went back and forth. And this one guy said, I'll buy the van if it's painted orange and white. Done. If I have to go to Bulgaria myself and paint it orange and white. And I told Eddie Fox that, and he laughed because he knew he's a big Vol fan too. No problem. White van, orange stripe all the way around it like that. It was used, but it was his. And then I decided to go there and visit the church and preach in the churches in Varna and Sofia and around and build relationships. And I got to be there in that church. I got to hear the children sing, the gypsy children sing. They were unable to read, you see. They're not literate folk. They don't have educations. They work. They work all the time. The children work. They don't go to school. They work. And I was in this one particular church that our church now was going to partner with and pay their pastor's salary and buy the van and support them in ministry. And I visited one of those churches, and these gypsy children were there ready for us. There were about 50 of them. They were all over the place. And the people, we had to stand outside of the house with the windows removed in snow in order for the children to have enough room to sing for us. They memorized sections of Matthew's gospel and they put it to music. They wanted to honor the Westerners that came there. They wanted to bestow on us honor, and it was us that needed to honor them. These little children, they sang Matthew's gospel. One little girl, I'll never forget this. As we were trying to find places at the window around, we were all, the short people up front, tall people in the back, so we can watch this thing. And this little girl, she looked maybe 10 or 11, come to find out she's 14. She was the organizer. She was the choir director. And she'd get them in there, and she'd point at them, and she'd talk to them, and they were just children. They were 7 and 8, 9, younger children. And she had them all lined up. And one of them kept talking. She went over and smacked one of them in the mouth. I wouldn't advise that, Luke, right off. That's not an appropriate technique in most cases. And we were just kind of watching her leadership, just bring them together. And she'd make them sing and sing loud. And when I wasn't singing loud, she'd go over there and tap them on the head, make them pay attention. Very engaged. And then a grandmother and another small child came in. They came in the back door, in my perspective. It was a side door, back door. And the little boy was covered in snow up to his knees. And the little boy came over, took off his coat, and stood in the front. Moved over and stood right in the front of the group. And Mariella, the little girl, I found out her name, without stopping, without ending the music, she went over there and slipped off her shoes and put on his snow-covered shoes. Routine, natural, not hesitant. She put on his cold and wet shoes and gave her warm shoes to the little boy, and she continued to lead him in music. My experience with the Bulgarians has forever shaped my notion of generosity. It's not compelled. It's not because you want to. It's not because we need you to. It's because you want to. Your heart must guide your hand. Amen? Now I want you to look for, metaphorically, symbolically, will you look for that little boy with snow-filled shoes? Will you share his shoes this week? Not because you're earning your salvation, not because you want God to love you more. God will not love you anymore. You are fully saved. But out of your own sense of gratitude and thanksgiving, will you now reciprocate? Because your heart guides your hand. Staying in contact with Tina, the mission team had a great experience. I don't know all the details. I've asked her to come. One great example in our community of this type of giving happens when we go away. We leave our community. It's not about us. It's non-self-referential. It's giving beyond who we are. It's giving to people that can never give back. Our mission team has done that. They've done that. So I've asked them to come and share just a little bit. They'll be sharing more in the details, and there may be some photographs, but I want you to hear. There are those of us who are living out that kind of generosity already.
There are two elderly ladies in Marion, Virginia that the youth exchanged shoes with this week. And Gabby's going to come and talk about that with you. But as I always do after every trip with these youth, I will tell you this is the best group of youth I've ever worked with. They don't fuss, they don't fight. They just roll up their sleeves and they get the job done. And they work together perfectly. They grow closer together. They learn together. And this is Gabby. I think y'all know her. She's leaving us this year, and I'm really going to miss her. She's been our spokesperson. A lot of them are afraid to come up and talk. But so Gabby's going to do that for you. I don't know what else to tell you about them. She's going to tell you about the work that was done and what we studied, but we had 8 youth, and Jeff and I, that went on mission trip this year. I'm going to cry.
Oh man, like she said, this is probably like the best mission trip I have been on. I've been to Marion. This was my 3rd time going, and it was amazing. Like the group of youth that went, we did so much. We did more than the 2 other groups that were there. They were leaving with leftover projects, and we finished everything plus more, and it was awesome. We had two older ladies that we helped. One, her name was Miss Sue. And that lady was so sweet. She was a gift from God. And it was sad though, she lost her son to cancer earlier this year, so she was still grieving. So she kind of took us in under her wing a little bit. She showed us pictures of her family. It was really cool. What we did to her house is we painted 3 rooms. Well, we painted ceilings, and we painted all the rooms. We did the living room, her bedroom, and then the hallway. And then we fixed her outside. We mowed. We did out her flower beds, fixed gutters. We stained her porch. Oh yeah, we put new outdoor carpet outside, and compared, it looks awesome now. It looks really good.
Is it orange and white?
No. I wish it was awesome, but no. It was beige color.
Well,
it still looks good. And she was so grateful. And at the end of the week, Project Crossroads, through their mission team, they have little prayer quilts and stuff. And what they do is they pray over them, and then they give them to the lady. And when we gave it to her, she looked like she was almost 8 years. And she held it really close to her, and she just cherished it. And she was like, "I'm going to treasure this forever." And it was really sweet. And then She hugged us all, told us she loved us, and it was amazing. And Tori celebrated her 16th birthday this week, and so we just kind of mentioned it to the ladies, and we were like, oh, today's her birthday, and she ended up getting her a gift. We went the next day, and we thought that was really sweet that she was thinking of us. The next house, that was a struggle a little bit. She was nice. We didn't get to see her much. I've like never seen a house with like that big of like a ditch in front of it, and it was all grown up. So we had to mow it, weeded it out. It was hectic, and the one challenge she had like 6 or 7 little dogs that were like everywhere. And so we'd had to like paint her porch and stain her porch, and there's like millions of dogs everywhere. And they were so loud, like I was mowing and I'm pretty sure you could still hear the dogs like barking in the background. But we got it done, we finished it, and it was awesome. It looks great. I know she's very thankful for that. Us as a youth, like in general, I don't think I've ever laughed so much in my entire life. I mean, there were points where we would just be sitting down and we just start laughing for like no reason. I don't think we knew what we were laughing about. And it was really great. Like you could just feel like God putting the joy in our hearts to just to do what we did. And it was absolutely fantastic. What we studied this week is we studied the 2 Great Commandments and then the Great Commission. And I think it really opened our eyes to see that, we really should love our neighbor, and how just by, you get more joy given to other people than you do just focusing it on yourself. And you could really see it. I think we were all very, very pleased and just felt just so much joy when we saw like the looks on the old ladies' faces and how happy they were that we did that for them. And so it was really fun.
No, thank you.
I can tell you the reason that we went to Dolly's house, the second house we went to, is because we had 4 days of work, Monday through Thursday, that Project Crossroads had planned for us, and our youth got those 4 days of work done in 2.5 days. And so they searched to find us another project. They weren't ready to start on this house yet, and they got it together for us to start on a separate project. And I know Gabby told you a lot about the work that we did, but especially with Sue, the first lady, the house we worked at, what made a difference to her was not that her rooms were painted or her gutters were fixed. It's that those kids sat down in her living room and talked to her and let her show them pictures of her son and her grandkids. And they just loved her. And that's what she needed. And so that was our devotions throughout the whole week. What are the 2 greatest commandments?
Love God, love others.
Love God, love others. And the Great Commission is make disciples. And that's what we're here to do.